Create with Fran Sidney. Hello everyone and welcome to the show. We're very excited today to bring you all the way from
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas, our friend and executive coach, Megan Shekleton. Did I pronounce this correctly?
You did amazing. Thank you so much, friends, for having me.
I'm so excited to have you, Megan, because we are going to help you guys listening, with a really big problem that a lot of women are suffering with. Some men, but mostly seems to be women, and it's so connected to our well-being. So today with Megan, we're going to see how to overcome fibromyalgia. It is not incurable. It is something that I have talked about many times in my podcast, and this time we're going to see how you tackle it, looking at emotions, holistic wellness, how you're dealing with your thoughts, and a lot more. Is a very large approach because Megan being a coach and a lot more than that, because she works at high sphere, helping people to create a wider vision of their life. Mm-hmm. So she has a very, very particular input that I think is going to be so helpful. So listen up. Shall we first explain what fibromyalgia is? Because you overcame it and you had it, so you know exactly how it feels. What does it look like to have fibromyalgia?
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And it's such an honor to be here. And if my story and the tools that have really helped me can help anyone else, then it's worth it. Fibromyalgia is an autoimmune illness that causes different symptoms, but for me, that looks like pain in the body, a lot of fatigue, brain fog. And I've really noticed personally that there is a huge connection between my mental well-being and then my physical well-being.
Right, so there is this connection between the body, the emotions, the soul. Everything is connected. We're not just detached little compartments. So how long did you suffer from fibromyalgia?
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention that, with autoimmune illness or any illness at all, that I am an executive coach and I'm speaking from the perspective of my own experience, but also I'm an expert really in coaching tools to help you transform your life. So mindset management, better nervous system regulation, emotional awareness. And what I've noticed is all of those practices that really help me transform my life or my clients' lives have also really resulted in putting my fibromyalgia into remission. I have been suffering from the illness for about 12 years. A little bit about my story is really growing up, I suffered from a lot of low self-worth, loud inner critic, a lot of that resulted in anxiety or disordered eating or bouts of depression. And although I was really high functioning with my anxiety, I wasn't happy. And so I ended up, graduating college, going to New York City, climbing the corporate ladder in advertising. And I found myself in a really toxic work environment where my fight or flight was on haywire. I was crying every day at work, having panic attacks in the bathroom. And what I really believe is that my fight or flight switch just was really turned on. And then it resulted in that, chemical cascade of the body that increased inflammation and then turned on the autoimmune illness, fibromyalgia. And for me, it was really the first time in my life where I just felt so awful that it forced me to get help and start to gain tools to physically feel better. But because I noticed a huge correlation with my mental and emotional well-being, also finding tools to better self-regulate and better understand myself so that I wasn't automatically believing these really hypercritical stories that I had been telling myself my whole life, that I wasn't enough, or if I didn't perform perfectly, that, I would be found out and that I would get fired. Your brain would go to the worst case scenario. And so for me, that looked like therapy, which was really starting to understand, okay, what were these narratives and stories that I've been telling myself my whole life? and starting to question them, starting to get curious about them. Were they true? Could I absolutely know they were true? And who was I without those stories? I don't know if you're familiar with Byron Katie's 4 questions, but that was very powerful for me. And then another tool is nervous system regulation. And so starting to understand the power of really simple practices like breath work and meditation, and how that can switch us from that fight or flight state into that parasympathetic state, which brings safety back to the body, allows us to access our subconscious, our mindset. And it really is this whole system approach to feeling better.
Well, that's great. So I just want to give hope to people. We're not doctors here, but when you hear a person that has a condition and then is no longer in these chains, and you want to know how on earth did you do it, because so many people suffer from it. And I see people that they're very giving, they give service, they want to help everyone, and the pain is not going to stop me, I'm just going to keep going. And the pain keeps going higher and higher because they're just so overwhelmed with all this work, and they don't stop. And so eventually they have to go to doctors because it's becoming really difficult. And the thing is, it's good to be beautiful and inside and to help everyone. And it's good to be perfect. Let's put this, it's a dream to be perfect, to do everything, to be everywhere for your kids, your husband, your wife, your boss. Is good, but we have 24 hours. Could it be that when we suffer from fibromyalgia, we are putting our own well-being in a class B area, so we think, oh yeah, when I have time, I will relax? Is it possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think speaking for me, I was always living on that kind of if-then track of like checking off milestones, getting those A's, getting a great job, and then if I do this, then I'll be happy. If I get this promotion, then I'll be happy. And I also had so much of my own self-worth tied up in these external achievements that if I did something wrong, then I was wrong, right? And so it created this hypervigilance and hypercriticism that I think caused my body to really associate these psychological issues with my own personal safety, really triggering that like anxiety, that stress, those panic attacks, which then of course result in implications to our physical well-being.
So now you're talking about all this stuff, and I think, wow, so you have, as a coach, you have all the tools there. So you can transform your mindset, you can transform your body, and then as a cascade effect, you can transform this fibromyalgia in another way of telling you are too stressed now. Maybe just a thought, it will tell you, okay, slow down, without having all this tension and everything. What can you share about this protocol that you have for transformation?
Yes, thank you. And it's so true. I feel like for me, one of the reframes, right, because our mind is so powerful, I know you know this, is that with my autoimmune illness, which I want to be clear, it sometimes does flare up, but I used to suffer from a flare up for months and months on time. Now I maybe get a flare up once a year for a few days. And I think the reframe that supported me is my body is really, really connected to my mental and emotional well-being. And can I listen to my body when it whispers versus when it screams? And I used to really override those sensations of, I got to keep working, I got to keep going, not sleeping, etc. And now I really prioritize taking care of myself. And so I think for so many of us, a lot of times we have these rock bottom moments where we are forced, because we're in so much pain in one way or another, we're forced to start to gain tools to help support us and take care of ourselves. And with Wider Visions, which is a company that I'm building, we're creating accessibility to coaching tools. And a big reason why I'm so passionate about that is because I just didn't have the practices to better understand myself, create change in my life, and better take care of myself. And so to answer your question, I love supporting people in thinking, what is the most expansive, juicy vision for my life? If, anything was possible, friends, like, what would you ask for? Who would you want to be? If you had no limitations at all, what would you want your life to look like? Exactly. Sardinia, oceanfront views.
Yeah. For those that only listen to the podcast and they do not see, I have as a background the blue sea, probably in Teulada, in the north of Sardinia, which is a very nice sea. As you can see, the Mediterranean is quite a really strong blue. So when Megan was talking, I was just pointing at this and saying, what do you want in your life? Well, maybe just be, walking on the beach in the evening. It's a nice, breezy day. It's warm, but it's not cold. It's just perfectly fine. And you hear the seagulls going and everything is calm and you just relax. And everyone goes on holiday once a year and they think, that's it. That's the only time when I relax. Some people don't even do that. They go on holiday and they run like crazy. They don't relax. And that's fine because I love it. But if we're waiting for, I think, once a year to relax, I fear that we're all going to have a little bit of burnout.
Yeah. No, it's such a good point. And, when at Wider Visions, we've created a 4-step framework to transformation, and it's getting clear on your vision, creating internal transformation through cognitive, subconscious, and somatic practices, taking aligned action towards who you want to be. And then the 4th one, which I hear you saying, is enjoying the process, because we're always going to be in a state of growing. And so if you're only happy like I was when I reached that milestone or accomplished that vision, then you're not really like fully enjoying life, which I'm hearing you say, like, we're only allowing ourselves to relax one time a year on vacation. That's not really creating a life that you love that feels fulfilling in the in-between processes of stretching and growing into who you want to become.
Mm-hmm. And let's go deeper then in these protocols and this way that you create this transformation. In the end of the day, you are in the right place because it is called Create with Friends. And it means create the life that you want. So let's create this life. What does it look like to live in a different way when we're transforming? How do we start if I have a person sitting today watching the video and they have fibromyalgia or autoimmune disease, they maybe have this kind of root? What can we do today?
Well, I think it always starts with the vision and really tapping into like what, for someone who is maybe struggling with their health. And I want to say that I feel like you can have the perfect career, the perfect partner, the most amazing, everything in your life can be amazing. And if your health is not well, it is so hard to enjoy it. And it is so hard to feel happy, I really, really empathize with that. And it really is a holistic approach to taking care of yourself. And oftentimes, I know for me, for years, I really only went the Western medicine approach of medicine, which I'm still on, going to the doctors without really looking at, okay, how can I support myself? Yes, from a medical perspective, but then what are the other components to holistically taking care of myself mentally, emotionally, and physically? And for me, what has been really supportive of that is, getting clear on, okay, what is my mindset? What are the stories that I'm telling myself? So a really practical way to do this is if you notice an emotional trigger come up, because our emotions are really like the thermometer of our subconscious. It's the, emotions are our feelings in motion or our thoughts in motion. Start to get curious about it. Okay, I'm feeling really a lot of anxiety right now. Well, instead of escaping that, okay, how can I get curious about it? What might I be feeling anxious about? What might I be telling myself about this? What meaning am I giving to this, worst case scenario situation? And what might be a kinder thing to tell myself, or what might be a a different potential, right? Like so often we look at the worst case scenario, but that's just one potential. And there's oftentimes many other potentials, like the best case scenario, that we aren't even considering, or that we're giving up if we don't even allow ourselves to try. And so I think that's one really helpful tool, is starting to understand your mindset and starting to get curious about your emotions and what they're telling you. Another one is starting to learn practical techniques to regulate your nervous system. So breath work, really in a simple way, if your exhale is longer than your inhale, if you're just focusing on your exhale being longer than your inhale, that starts to trigger that rest and digest safety response back to the body. And so, oftentimes when we're having an anxiety attack or we're really in our emotions, the first thing we need to do is ground and come back into our body. Because in those moments, our prefrontal cortex goes offline, which is our critical mind. And so you can't even start to do that like mindset thinking work until you start to ground back into the body, start to feel safe in your body. And then from there, you can start to get curious of, okay, what was going on subconsciously, right? What was I mentally thinking about? And how can I start to reframe my thoughts or think differently?
And that's a really good approach. So being curious and not being judgmental. Big thing, isn't it? Yeah. So after we realize, okay, I feel triggered by this person or event or sensation, then should we just allow this pain to grapple as it does, make us feel tense? Or should we then take a medication for relaxation? Or how do we relax out of this pain? Because fibromyalgia is quite a strong pain.
Well, I think, and again, it could be fibromyalgia pain, emotional pain, etc. And oftentimes, like, it is bringing that safety to the body. I think that if you're in the midst of a lot of pain, when we are resisting what is, it creates even more pain around the experience. So Eckhart Tolle has this quote that at first I didn't like it when I heard it, but it says, accept this moment as if you chose it. And it, to me, what helps me with is practice getting back into that neutrality. So if I'm in a really bad flare-up, I could be resentful or be angry or have all of these emotions that I'm in this experience, which is very human, right? It's a very human reaction to pain, whether it be emotional pain, physical pain, like those feelings are valid. But what's helpful for me is to accept this moment as if I chose it. And what that does is it brings me back into more of a neutral state and then gives me more agency over the experience. And it takes a lot of practice, and I can't say I get it right every single time. But these same frameworks that I use with my fibromyalgia are the same frameworks that I use when emotional pain comes up in my life, when something sticky or challenging triggers me. And, how can you come back to a sense of neutrality? And then from that neutrality, how can you reach for the better feeling?
Right. That's good. Thank you. So we're now going through this reprogramming of how to generate a different response to a trigger. Is that correct? So I know that you have come out with a product that helps with that. Tell me about it.
Yes, thank you so much. So, like I mentioned, at Wider Visions, we have that 4-step framework to transformation. So getting clear on your vision, creating internal transformation, external transformation, and then enjoying the process. And so we are launching the Vision Journal in May. It's our first product. And with the Vision Journal, it really hones in on that first step, which is gaining clarity on what is a wider vision for your life, what's the identity that you want to step into, and then helping you map out an initial action plan and steps to start moving towards it. So it includes over 80 journaling prompts, 11 coaching frameworks. It comes with a QR code to a self-guided course and meditations and tapping videos. Because at Wider Visions, our mission is to really make these coaching frameworks and tools that I use with my private clients more accessible, because I believe that everyone deserves to have the tools to change their life, and we want to be the most accessible and impactful way to help you do that.
Yes, it's a great idea, and not everyone can afford coaching session for weeks on end, and that allows you to do it in your own pace and get the results, and maybe go and help your own friends and say, hey, I found out if I take 10 minutes a day, I'm just throwing there a number, so don't quote me on that. But maybe if we just took that time every day to be quiet and mindful and no distractions, nothing, and just think of what we need, what our body needs, etc., maybe we'll be more in touch. I'm not saying that people who have fibro, we're not in touch, okay? Just make sure you don't misunderstand. But there has to be a way that we can talk to our body before the body starts to say, hey, louder and louder. And that is a great way, meditation. I'm all for it. Is there anything else that we could add to these tools? Or is that all we have? Is 4 things that we do. And after we do it, how long do you think we have to work with these tools before we can see decent change?
Yeah, and I want to just respond to what you said, that I agree with you. I really think that we should celebrate our small wins and the small micro decisions that we make that are aligned with who we are. They compound into real change. And so often we imagine that, it's only kind of that all or nothing mindset of it's only going to be worth it if I do 3 hours a day or go really intense in this process. And what's actually better, or what I think is more effective, is, okay, can I dedicate 10 minutes to myself, 10 minutes towards my visions, 10 minutes towards who I want to be? And if you do that every day over the course of a year, right, you're going to be so much further along than if you thought, okay, I'm only going to start this when I have heaps of time. And I also want to just say that I agree with you. It's such a tender topic to talk about autoimmune or illness, and everyone's experience is so different. And by no means are these tools the only tools that'll help someone kind of navigate that experience. But I think what isn't talked about enough is the impact that our emotions and our mental well-being can have on our physical well-being.
Yeah, that's a very important message that cannot be discounted, because we are all together, we're not a separate entity, and our body will reflect that. And I have so many experiences, not only with my own hypnosis clients, but other friends that I have who are all in this world of therapy, being hypnotherapists and RTT people. And we saw people having huge problems on their skin, flare-ups, or to psoriasis disappear when the problem was processed. And a mental level, you just get it out from a little recess where it was hiding for years. You tackle it, you process it. It's painful, but you process it. And then when it goes back neatly into the place where it should have been. And the skin, how would you say, deflates completely. So, all this heat that it had, it just goes away. This doesn't mean that every single disease can go with hypnosis or RTT. No. But we have so much we can do just by changing our mindset. So if you were now to talk to a person that has fibro, what would be your last tips or suggestions or wishes that you want to give to them, to give them a little bit of hope?
Well, I think with my story, not only have I really shifted my fibromyalgia, but also I haven't had a panic attack in, over 10 years. I am much less critical of myself. I feel like I really do have a sense of self-worth outside of what I do and what I accomplish. And it really is the simple tools that you do consistently that really pay off in better understanding yourself and having the ability to create internal and external change. And so I guess it would just be like, it's possible. And also give them a huge hug and let them know that I've been there and that it can be really challenging. We're in the midst of a really sticky situation. And again, I think that health is one of those challenges that can feel extra frustrating, limiting, insert whatever that emotion is, because it can be so all-encompassing. And so again, really focusing on what are the small things that I can do to better support myself. When you are in the midst of an autoimmune illness, you might not have a lot of energy, right? But allowing yourself to remember, okay, that 5 minutes of taking time to breathe, or that kind of thing that I told myself, or, you know, finding the energy to find a better doctor or medication, or, you know, whatever, eat better. All of those small, tiny things are steps in the right direction that I really do think are compounding into better health, both physically and emotionally and mentally.
I'm just taking a minute to take it all in. So how do we summarize this? It's been so great to hear about your healing story, and, you know, panic attacks are quite a serious thing of their own. So it's very painful. It can leave you stuck at home. You can't even get out because you're terrified. So that's on its own would have been a whole podcast episode. But both, I mean, yeah, that's terrifying.
Thank you. Yeah. And also just to add, like, this has been a 15-year journey for me. Things don't happen, in my experience, overnight, right? Even to form a new habit, it takes 66 days of intention. That it takes time to change our lives. But I really believe that, like, the small efforts that we take do matter. And I really appreciate you having me on the show.
It's been my pleasure. I learned so much, and I hope that you guys listening also have found a lot of solace and hope in this, because of course we're not doctor and we're not trying to diagnose or give medication, but we're just trying to give you another tool that you can use today. And, you know, meditation is free. Journaling is free. I'm always trying to say, you know, get all the medication you can, get all the help from a doctor, psychologist, all you want, but there are other things you can do that are free that will help complement your journey outside of this issue or condition. And when it's possible to do it, it's amazing. And it might not take a week. It might take several sessions with a coach or a hypnotherapist or a teacher or psychologist or whatever you choose. It might take a lot of grit, because sometimes we have to fight the disease. If a disease is force 8 on 10, we might have to fight it with force 20, you know. But it will happen, you know, something will shift. And certainly when we feel lighter emotionally, everything is easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
You know, we have a stronger, how would you say, mental strength, because you can't say really stronger mental strength, but we have a more solid capacity to cope with problems when we are able to center ourselves, to relax, to breathe, and to see what we want, and to have this wider vision that you're talking about. And it could be even better with a journal that we're going to advertise in all the links. So you're going to see, guys, what you can do, and that's a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Megan, and she will be very happy to answer, or maybe even to let you have one of these amazing links for this journal, or even a session if you need a session or two to get started. Sometimes all we need is understanding how coaching works. And when you love it, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this before? This happens all the time.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor.
It's okay. It's wonderful. And thank you for being with us, Megan. So Megan Shekleton, a Create with Friends. So thank you for being with us. And I'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.